Story 1. I'm Mexican. For us, it's usually quesadillas without meat, with rice and black beans as side dishes. Story 2. Soup can be made from anything and it feeds many people. Story 3. Cubed potatoes, a tin of tomatoes, an onion, and whatever spices I have in the pantry. I eat it often, even though times are not hard. It is delicious. Story 4. Lentils and rice. I grew up very poor, so this doubles as a comfort food for me. Chicken gravy. Canned chicken, chicken gravy mix, and mashed potatoes. Make the gravy, stir in the canned chicken, and serve over mashed potatoes. A can of vegetables on the side is optional. Story 5. Gravy bread. My mother and aunt lived on it during the Depression, and it is really good too. Story 6. Oatmeal all day long. It never changes and never gets old. Rice and beans are a close second. Story 7. My easy ramen spaghetti. Ramen, tomato sauce, and any extra spices, sauces, or proteins you want. Story 8. Cup ramen makes me feel like I'm a background character in a Cowboy Bebop scene, which is one of my life goals. Story 9. Canned corn and canned beans mixed half and half. Add salt, pepper, cayenne, and garlic powder, then eat it as is. You can microwave it if you want it warm, but I prefer it at room temperature. It is also good with tortilla chips if you have them. Story 10. I eat black beans and rice a lot because it's tasty. Story 11. Mash the potatoes and top with a sunny side-up egg. Sprinkle with salt and enjoy. Story 12. I ate plain rice and one egg for 3.5 years at university. Story 13. I come from a family of amazing cooks and consider myself top in that category. However, one of my all-time favorite things to eat is plain pasta with a can of diced tomatoes, seasoned with salt and pepper. No garlic, no herbs, not even parsley. Just plain pasta and diced tomatoes. I guarantee it is one of the easiest and most warming comfort foods ever. Story 14. Rotisserie chicken for $6. Nothing beats it. Produce and wholesale stores sell these chickens at a loss. Rice, chicken, steamed vegetables, or pan-fried asparagus. Cook some hard-boiled eggs and marinate them in a zip-top bag with my soy sauce mixture. Use the sauce on top of the rice. Save the bones and carcass of the rotisserie chicken to make chicken stock. Use that chicken stock to make congee or rice porridge. Rice porridge with hard-boiled quail or century egg, ground beef, and a squeeze of lime on top. Served with sides like kimchi, pork floss, samjang, or steamed cod. All of the above are very low effort and low cost. This is what I typically ate in college, at a cost of $200 to $250 per month. Story 15. Everybody's poverty meal is my luxury meal. What the fuck is going on here? Story 16. I miss hot dogs and SpaghettiOs, but I now hate them, so it's a pickle. Story 17. Garlic bread and tomato soup. I use garlic, salt, and butter. Melt the butter and spread it on the bread, sprinkle garlic salt, and bake it for a few minutes. While that is in the oven, make the tomato soup and add basil and garlic salt. When the soup is done, take the bread out and eat it. It's an okay meal. Story 18. Ramen. Beans on toast. Tuna mayonnaise sandwich. Cheese and onion sandwich. Story 19. Kraft mac and cheese with a can of tuna. Add some hot sauce and plenty of butter. I could eat it every day. Story 20. When I want to splurge, I choose beanie weenie wakikini and add a few pineapples. Story 21. I am surprised there are so few mentions of regular pasta. There are many varieties, and they are really easy to make taste good. Story 22. You can put most things in a tortilla. Cheese, rice, beans, leftover meat. Story 23. Macaroni with tomatoes and a large amount of chili powder, black pepper, cayenne pepper, and salt. Story 24. Pinto beans and cornbread. For under $6 you can cook the beans and make cornbread, giving you food for several days. Story 25. Bacon grease, sawmill gravy, and biscuits. Cook bacon in a pan, then use the leftover grease and slowly add flour and milk to make the gravy. There is no better gravy on earth. Many a Saturday morning, my great-aunt Christine would make this for me for breakfast. Story 26. Potato and leek soup with a grilled cheese sandwich. Story 27. Chopped ginger root and green onion with salt and oil. Serve over rice. Story 28. Spaghetti dinner. Cheap jar of sauce, store-brand pasta, 1 pound of ground beef. Story 29. Red beans and rice with smoked sausage. Black beans, rice, and cheese. Pasta carbonara. Substitute bacon for guanciale. Story 30. If I am pretty hungry, I might make my world-famous beans and wieners with some toast. Story 31. Beer, usually. 2 beers put me straight to sleep on an empty stomach. Story 32. Boxed macaroni and cheese with tuna, peas, and cream of chicken soup makes a good helping, and it is still one of my favorite comfort foods in the world. Story 33. Ramen, which is why I always balk at places selling ramen for $20 a plate. This stuff costs you $1 at best. Story 34. You can make many different foods with a bag of potatoes. Roasted, chips, fries, mashed potatoes, soup, or baked potatoes. If you go the ramen route, it is easy to add 1 or 2 ingredients to change the flavor. Green cabbage adds volume and cooks easily in ramen. A can of corn is a nice addition. Peas or other vegetables work as well. Story 35. A little cheese quesadilla. You just need cheese and a flour tortilla. Use some butter or olive oil if you are Mr. Moneypants. Story 36. I'm not poor, but white bread with ketchup is my go-to meal. Story 37. Ramen without the seasoning with cheap spaghetti sauce instead. Maybe microwave some pre-cooked meatballs and add them if I am being fancy. Story 38. Rice with beans, eggs, or canned tuna. Pasta with butter. Basic grilled cheese. Story 39. Prison spread. Ramen, some chips, mayonnaise, and maybe a can of tuna or smoked oysters. $10 and you get stuffed and have a burrito for later. Story 40. Ours is lima beans, field peas, and cornbread with garlic. Yes, definitely from the South. Story 41. Rice and eggs, beans and hummus with pita, toast, and more. Homemade hummus is inexpensive and easy to make. Story 42. Right now it's rice porridge and eggs with garlic and spices. Story 43. Melted cheese on chips or a tortilla. I doubt I will ever hit a financial milestone that will take those out of my diet. Story 44. Rice and beans. If sardines are on sale, I will stock up and mix those in with some tomato paste. Story 45. Rice mixed with ground beef, black pepper, and a can of mushroom soup. Sometimes add onions and garlic. It is a meal that makes a large amount at low cost. Story 46. My mom worked part-time at a grocery store deli, so we never went hungry and I was thankful. My family ate a lot of sandwiches and deli meats. I associate that with my #1 struggle meal. Worst case, we had saltines and butter, but it was not my favorite. I would take turkey on white bread any day. Story 47. A can of soup or eggs with a slice of Velveeta cheese on toast. Story 48. Oatmeal. I add pumpkin pie spice, honey, dried fruit, and nuts for crunch. It is also really healthy for you. Story 49. Carbonara can be inexpensive and still taste great as long as you are willing to use bacon and a less expensive hard cheese. Story 50. Penne pasta with shredded cheese and Tony Chachere's seasoning. Story 51. I buy 1 kilogram of fresh chicken wings. Costs 1.90 euros. I am in Spain. I boil them with salt, olive oil, and a bouillon cube. I get a great broth to which I can add small pasta shapes or rice to make soup, enough for 3 days or for 3 people. I divide the tender meat in 2, 1 part to eat immediately with rice or potatoes, and the other part to make croquettes. 1 kilogram of fresh chicken wings provides food for a whole week. Story 52. Beans and rice. That's it. Japanese curry made with curry cubes is another cheap, wholesome, and delicious meal. Story 53. I don't know how cheap it is everywhere, but my mom makes a mean hash from 1 small or medium potato, some cheese, 1 egg, and a bit of fresh onion as her go-to breakfast. She is still using the first onion she cut last week, has barely touched the small bag of potatoes, and says it lasts her well into lunchtime. Story 54. Pizza beans with canned tomatoes, onion, navy beans, mozzarella cheese, and Italian seasoning. Apparently Luigi Mangione's meal of choice in prison. Story 55. Kraft mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it. Ramen with leftover chicken. Story 56. A cup of ramen with one egg is quick and filling. If I need to use leftover deli meat, I tear it up and add it. You can also add frozen vegetables. This filling meal usually costs less than $1. If I am very hungry, I use 2 eggs. Story 57. I remember craving spicy chips and eating tostadas with tapatio. It was pretty good. Story 58. Eggs and some carbohydrates such as bread, crackers, rice, and bananas. Story 59. I grew up poor. My mother fed 7 children with ghetto goulash, similar to American chop suey. It cost about $5 for 15 to 20 servings. My son made this for his dorm mates at Boston University. He charged $1 per plate and made a little money for beer. Story 60. Marmite on bread. It is expensive here, but a jar lasts many months. Story 61. I am South Indian. Leftover fermented rice from the previous day with raw onion and sometimes curd saved our family countless times when we were in poverty. Story 62. Spaghetti with meat sauce. A large pot yields many meals and tastes good even after several days. Story 63. Meat rice. Use a piece of chicken or pork, whichever is cheapest. Season with salt and pepper and bake. Cook some rice and mix it with the meat. Be sure to collect any meat juices from the pan or foil. Slightly fancy for budget food, but meat rice provides protein and carbohydrates. It is a good option when you can. Story 64. Sautéed cabbage, beans, and vegan taco meat with salsa. Delicious, filling, and inexpensive, since it makes a large quantity. Story 65. Red beans and rice. Forgo the sausage, buy the spices and rice in bulk, and a family-sized pot can cost about $7 to $8 for the vegetables and canned beans. Story 66. Beans on toast. If I have the means, I will add some cheese. Every third meal or so, I will dress it up with some curry powder or a dash of soy sauce. Story 67. What I call a depression sandwich is cheap white bread with American cheese, yellow mustard, and as many potato chips as you can stuff in it. Story 68. 1 or 2 of the following in some combination. Rice, beans, eggs, onions, potatoes, milk, the cheapest cut of chicken, about $1.50 per pound for drumsticks and thighs in my local stores, and any inexpensive or on sale vegetables such as carrots, squash, or broccoli. Story 69. Last night I thawed a pound of ground beef, browned it with onions, added frozen stir-fry vegetables and spices, and served it with rice. I will get 3 meals for about $4. Story 70. Peanut butter and jelly with Cape Cod potato chips. 20 meals for $10. Story 71. When it got really bad, I volunteered at a local restaurant that provided free meals in exchange for 2 hours of work. The tasks were small, like cleaning or stocking shelves. Story 72. Potatoes are versatile. You can put almost anything on them to improve the flavor. They are inexpensive and they have a lot of starch and potassium. Add some fruit or supplements for nutrients and you are pretty much set. Story 73. Ramen. Bread with tea. Burgers with pretend steak and ketchup. Canned beans. Rice with butter. Story 74. HEB jalapeno cheddar sausage warmed in a skillet with olive oil until it was charred a bit and the cheddar inside melted. Wrap it in a flour tortilla with shredded cheese, Cholula hot sauce, and mustard. This meal literally saved my life when I was making nearly $2,000 a month. Story 75. Ramen with tuna. Simple recipe. Make any kind of packet ramen and drain. I prefer non-spicy ramen if you plan to add heat to the tuna. Mix a can of tuna with about 1 tablespoon mayonnaise, a little sesame oil, salt, pepper, furicake or sesame seeds and ramen seasoning, and a splash of soy sauce. If you have peppers, carrots, or parsley, Mince them and add them. Mix well and toss with the noodles. You can customize the heat and flavors to taste. High in protein and very filling. Keeps well for the next day, served hot or cold. Story 76. Pasta with eggs and tuna is so good. I could eat it every day. It is even better with some cheese. Story 77. Anything with Spam or canned sausage. Give me that sodium rush. Baby, when I don't have enough money. Make me dizzy enough to forget. Story 78. Cube steak with Montreal seasoning, fried with a pat of butter, or pork steaks slow-cooked in Italian dressing with part of a bag of frozen pearl onions. They become little flavor bombs. Serve over mashed potatoes. Pork steaks cost less than $2 at my local grocery store, often around $1.25. They are delicious. The pork and pearl onions soak up the Italian dressing and pork fat, and the onions become concentrated bursts of flavor. Story 79. During and right after college, it was ramen, usually with an egg and frozen vegetables added. When I had better jobs but needed to stretch a paycheck, I bought from the clearance shelves. Generally, I ate pasta with sauce and vegetables and either canned meat or marked down fresh meats. I ate the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. One time I mixed crushed saltines with eggs, and it used up a lot of my spices. Story 80. Buttered noodles with salt and Parmesan cheese, if I have it. Story 81. Elio's pizza with applesauce or grilled cheese made with cheap white bread, Kraft singles, and ramen. Story 82. Biscuits, with or without butter or jelly. If I'm really hard-pressed, I top them with syrup and a touch of sugar, or I have a grilled cheese. Story 83. Combine chicken, beans, and rice in a pot with vegetables and stock. It is easy and can be used for several different dishes. Story 84. A baked potato topped with any of the following: a can of chili, salsa, a 1 steak sauce, butter, salt, and pepper, peanut butter and jelly, scrambled egg sandwich, canned soup. Story 85. £1 and 20 pence for a ready-made meal or pasta and vegetables with a homemade tomato sauce. Story 86. I make Campbell's soup even chunkier with whatever discounted meats I find. I add rice and frozen vegetables. Story 87. Rice with seasoned ground turkey or with canned salmon or canned tuna. Story 88. Mom was a master at stretching the dollar. We ate a lot of porridge, puffed wheat, and powdered milk while I was growing up. I am still alive. No harm done. Story 89. Rice, some form of protein such as eggs, canned tuna, pan-fried hot dogs or Spam, and a banana. Story 90. Red beans and rice. Even the mice think it is a dish so nice you can eat a plate twice. Story 91. Carrots, pies, onions, tomato sauce, and pasta. You can add whatever protein you can afford. Story 92. It is what we in my country like to call a hooker's meal. Sausages and fried eggs. Story 93. Homemade sourdough is extremely cheap to make once you learn the process. It costs about $1 or $2 per loaf. Story 94. Hot sauce such as Frank's Red Hot, sometimes Old Bay seasoning or garlic powder, but not all at the same time. Story 95. Hot water in a cup and a stock cube make a cheap cup of soup. Story 96. Ramen, 1 measured serving of frozen mixed vegetables, and an egg mixed in at the end. Story 97. Chicken ramen with half a boiled egg, if we were lucky to have one. Cheese sandwich with bread, mayonnaise or Miracle Whip, and a slice of cheese. Story 98. White rice with teriyaki chicken. I usually debone a chicken thigh, cook it briefly, then add bottled teriyaki sauce and reduce it. I put it on top of rice. It hits the spot. I make about 20 meals with just a single $2 bottle of teriyaki sauce. Laughing out loud. Story 99. 1 can of black beans, 1 can of corn, and a small jar of salsa. Cook down until it's the consistency of cowboy caviar and serve over rice. Keeps for 4 to 5 meals and costs about $4. Story 100. It depends on what is in season in my garden. I usually have bread with jam or vegetables. Story 101. I have never felt like I was poor until I realized that people do not typically eat beans out of a can as a meal. Story 102. Angel hair spaghetti. After you drain it, cook it briefly with a scrambled egg and add salt or Vegeta seasoning. So delicious. Story 103. Bread, cheese, mayonnaise, maybe some lettuce, salt, and pepper. Not horrible, multiple textures. Story 104. Veggie chili. For $15, I can eat for about a week or a week and a half. It is absolutely delicious and very good for me. Quantities are approximate based on what I have on hand. Ingredients: 1 to 2 heads of garlic, crushed. 1 onion, chopped. Half a pound of carrots, chopped. 1 cup of frozen corn or 1 can of corn. 1 green pepper, diced, optional. Oil for sautéing. Salt, pepper, and a generous amount of chili powder. 2 to 3 cans of kidney beans. 1 can of black beans. 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Optional vegetables such as mushrooms. Garnish: sour cream and shredded cheese. Optional. Instructions: sauté the garlic, onion, carrots, corn, and green pepper in oil with salt, pepper, and chili powder. Add the beans and diced tomatoes. Simmer for a couple of hours and season to taste. It is hearty, filling, and healthy. I keep canned items on hand and buy fresh ingredients as needed, and I often freeze portions for later. Story 105. Is quinoa cheap? Mix in a little peanut butter and salt it lightly. Story 106. Dollar store macaroni and cheese with chili. I used to make a large pot and live on it for days. Story 107. Rotisserie chicken lasts for a few days and you can add it to almost anything. I make sandwiches from the breasts, and for the rest I use it in pasta with Alfredo sauce and frozen broccoli or peas. It is tasty and makes a hearty dinner that can sustain one person for a couple of days. Where I am from, this would cost about $19 and last for 3 to 4 meals depending on how much pasta I cook. Story 108. 2 slices of white bread with hot chips between them. I pretend it's a spicy, crispy chicken sandwich. Story 109. This is going to be a very popular topic this holiday season. Story 110. Canned salmon with rice makes a simple, affordable meal. You can form patties using crackers and an egg or 2 if you have them. Patties over rice are especially good. Story 111. Seaweed wraps with imitation crab meat, mayonnaise, and hot sauce. About a $5 meal. There are about 20 small wraps in a $2.50 package, and imitation crab is inexpensive at Walmart. Story 112. I will crush boiled eggs and mix them into my rice, then add salt. Story 113. Ramen noodles with a side of whatever's left in the fridge. Story 114. I haven't lived in poverty for several years, but when I did it was honey nut cornflakes in a disposable cup. If we were extremely fortunate, we could add 20 milliliters of milk. After 16 years of that, now that I have disposable income won by lots of Tesco ready meals, something I started cooking at university was Aldi ramen, boiled then fried in a pan with chicken and chorizo. I still make it with different types of ramen. If there's no chorizo, I slice up a pepperami. It's delicious. Story 115. Black beans and rice, or a baked potato with cheese, onions, jalapeno, and other toppings. Story 116. Grilled cheese with fried bologna, or hot dogs in a toasted bun. Story 117. Back in college, I lived on $20 to $25 a week. My diet consisted mainly of rice and beans, hard-boiled eggs, apples, oranges, cheap cuts of meat, and coffee. That was probably the leanest I ever was, even with my bad drinking habit. Story 118. Ground beef with canned carrots and peas, instant mashed potatoes, and a packet of gravy. It never fails. Story 119. Biscuits and hamburger gravy. You can feed 6 people with 1 pound of ground beef and simple drop biscuits made with baking powder. Story 120. Bagged shin ramen dressed up with homegrown Thai basil, hot peppers, an egg, and leftover meat if I have any in the fridge. Or I make a grilled cheese. Lately, I have been adding Parmesan to the outside of the bread to mix it up. Story 121. Baked beans on toast. Add smoked paprika and chili flakes. Supercharge it with grated mature cheddar or Gouda slices and a nearly frozen glass bottle of Coke. Story 122. 1 pack of spicy chicken ramen and 1 pack of creamy chicken ramen. Use only enough water for 1 pack. Add butter and cook until saucy. Story 123. Rice and beans are common across North America, Latin America, West Africa, Southeast Asia, and Central Europe. You can still experiment with international cuisine even if you are on a tight budget. Story 124. I just don't have much money this week. I'll make some sort of stir-fry with instant ramen or fried rice. If I'm really broke, rice and beans can't go wrong. I'd be long dead from starvation if it weren't for them. Story 125. Affordable pizza, chicken, rice, and vegetables with Asian sauce. Story 126. An egg on rice with chili crisp, cilantro, and a spot of soy sauce. Story 127. Ramen and hot dogs. I would still eat them if I were a millionaire. Story 128. Grilled cilantro lime chicken drumsticks. Always $5 for 14 at Freddy's, with rice and beans. It is a top quality meal, regardless of financial situation, and is very inexpensive. Story 129. Luckily, I have a Costco membership, so I buy pork shoulder, beans, and bulk frozen vegetables. I make pulled pork, stew, and pasta. Story 130. Cheesy pasta. Add butter, soy sauce, and cheese to the cooked pasta. Stir until the cheese is melted. Story 131. I don't have a go-to poverty meal, but I've been enjoying bean soup recently. Ham or pork on sale for 99 cents per pound. Dried beans, split peas, and some seasoning, sometimes soybean paste, sometimes chicken bouillon powder. Another is what I call miso soup. Soybean paste, which is similar to miso, but the Chinese or Korean versions are sometimes cheaper, a can of tuna, and a block of tofu. Story 132. Peanut butter and something. Sometimes bread or just a spoon. Story 133. Fruits and vegetables when you do not have access to hot water. Story 134. Instant noodles with frozen vegetables or eggs are cheap, filling, and quick. Story 135. Does creamed peas on toast count? If not, I am fond of mayonnaise sandwiches too. Hell, just toast in general is lovely. Story 136. I grill it, but I use Cheese Whiz and toss it into the toaster oven. Story 137. A straight-up cheese quesadilla is an inexpensive option. You can buy a block of any cheese and tortillas for a low price. It is not the healthiest option, but for a couple of dollars it will do. Story 138. Spam and rice when I am very poor. Spam, eggs, and rice when I am just poor or lazy. Story 139. Boxed mac and cheese with sliced hot dog. If I don't have milk, I use the pasta water instead. Story 140. A cheap dessert option from the United Kingdom is bananas and custard. Story 141. A can of hot chili beans served over rice, with a little cheese on top if you have it. Story 142. Baked potato with butter, cheese, sour cream, and seasoned salt. Bam. Story 143. Beans and rice, also called haystacks, are always nice with some lettuce for a green element. Story 144. Spaghetti noodles with butter and cheese. 1 box of spaghetti and 1 bag of cheese will provide dinner for the next few days. Story 145. If I have the choice, white bread, Miracle Whip, and potted meat. Story 146. We call them unstuffed peppers. Rice, beans, chopped peppers, canned tomato or tomato paste, and spices. We also make many dishes with potatoes. Our favorite is seasoned home fries. Thinly sliced potatoes drizzled in a little oil, tossed with paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper, then baked for 25 minutes at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Those seasonings are all available at the Dollar Tree. Story 147. Leftover items my wife brought home from a catered work event. Story 148. Sesame oil is not a meal itself but a way to make meals better. Be sure to check the bottle so you are getting pure sesame oil rather than the blended version, which is usually mixed with soybean oil and milder in taste. Added to ramen, both block noodles and cup noodles, it makes them significantly more enjoyable. It is a bit expensive for a condiment, but one bottle goes a long way. Story 149. Ramen, items from the damaged or open box sale at Walmart, and lots of frozen chicken breasts and rice. Story 150. You can do a lot with those $5 roasted chickens at Walmart. Story 151. Macaroni and tomato soup goulash. Add a chopped onion and some garlic if you can. It is delicious. Story 152. Chicken and rice, since chicken is cheaper than ground beef here. Story 153. 1. Kidney beans and canned tomatoes in tomato sauce. Rice or potatoes on the side if I can afford them. 2. Pasta with frozen spinach and some chopped fish fingers for texture and protein when I have them. 3. Beans on toast. I will always love it. I am British. Story 154. Potatoes, either cut up and fried or mashed with fried onions, remind me of my life as a poor student. With my recent loss of income, I have rediscovered how good potatoes are. Story 155. Toast with cream cheese and cinnamon sugar or brown sugar if I already have some. Story 156. We call it tater mess, but it is actually similar to a cottage pie. Ground beef, mashed potatoes, and cheese. Story 157. Cheese logs. 2 tortillas, each filled with cheese, rolled up and heated in the microwave. Story 158. Scrambled eggs with a little bit of salt and Ajinomoto seasoning. I will dip them in vinegar with fried rice. Story 159. Browned ground beef, rice, frozen corn, and macaroni, flavored with pepper and soy sauce. It always did the trick and lasted a while. Story 160. Bodega beans. Story 161. Bread, butter, raw vegetables such as spring onions and peppers, and deli meats such as pepperoni. Story 162. Moroccan beef ramen, sometimes with sriracha. Toast with butter, sugar, and cinnamon. Story 163. Ramen, drained and topped with cheese and a fried egg. Costs less than $1 and is my favorite poverty, comfort, and fast food. Story 164. Dintimore beef stew mixed with rice boiled in the bag. Story 165. They have quality fusilli at Trader Joe's for 99 cents. Pair that with a $3 jar of pasta sauce and a $3 bottle of Parmesan, and you get 3 to 4 meals for a total of $7. Story 166. Peanut butter taquito. Flour tortilla. Peanut butter. Honey, if you got some overtime last month. Story 167. Rice with salt or soy sauce. Then you will guess where I am from if you know. Story 168. Scrambled eggs with fried onions and potatoes, and sliced up hot dogs if you had them. This was lunch at Grandma's when all the grandkids were there. Story 169. Shredded chicken and macaroni and cheese. I mix in some Montgomery in barbecue sauce for extra flavor. Story 170. Steam rice with lap chong sliced on top and seasoned with soy sauce. Serve with steamed bok choy. My older relatives would argue over sharing the water left after steaming the vegetables, claiming it had medicinal properties. Story 171. Pasta with butter and cheap grated cheese. Then I crash from the carbs and fall asleep. Story 172. Rice with egg and Maggi, or rice with ground beef and Tabasco if I'm feeling luxurious. Story 173. Fried egg, rice, sesame oil, and soy sauce. A classic simple Korean meal. Story 174. I eat ramen, and if I have poached eggs, I add them. They give me a bit of protein. Story 175. Angel hair pasta with olive oil, lemon, and shaker cheese. Story 176. A little ground beef with Walmart shells and cheese. I'd rather starve than eat top ramen. I'd even choose bread and water instead. Story 177. Use chipotle refried beans on a tortilla, using any leftovers as additional fillings. Eat the Costco chicken to the bone. Then boil the bones with some vegetables to make chicken stock. Drink some of the stock and use the rest to cook spaghetti to add flavor. You can make a simple sauce if you have a bit of flour and spices. Right now, I have a ton of free McDonald's items from the Monopoly game. Story 178. Peanut butter with whatever bread, crackers, or tortillas are at home. Sometimes I put jelly on it, but I really just like peanut butter by itself. Story 179. Dal. Make a large pot. It is delicious and costs about €5. Eat it that day or during the next week, and freeze any leftovers. It is cheap and healthy. Story 180. Slow roasted duck. The only cost is the bullets. I would say fried catfish too, but I am allergic to fish. Story 181. A bag of California blend vegetables, 6 scrambled eggs, and rice, sautéed in one pan, seasoned with salt, pepper, and sprinkled with Parmesan cheese. Costs less than $3.50 for 2 large portions or 4 medium portions. Story 182. Spaghetti. I use a good-sized portion of ground turkey for protein, some sauce and pasta, and you are good to go. It saved me many times during difficult days. Sometimes I would even use the dirt cheap sauce from a can. Maybe not the best quality, but it was hearty and lasted me several days. Story 183. Omelets and quiche. Cheap cuts of fish such as mackerel, tilapia, pollock, and whiting. Cornbread. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.